Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
An episode of The Six Shooter starring Jimmy Stewart. It was originally broadcast 68 years ago, May 13th, 1954, the Double Seven. Thank you for tuning in on this TGI Friday. This is the 13th day of May. Yes, it is Friday the 13th, 133rd day of the year, and we have 232 days remaining till we get to 2023. U.S. declared war on Mexico on this date in 1846. In far south Texas on this date in 1865, more than a month after a Confederate General Lee's surrender, the last land battle of the Civil War ended with a Confederate victory. In Menlo Park, New Jersey, on this date in 1880, Thomas Edison performed the first test of his electric railway. The first commercial FM radio station went on the air on this date in 1939. The station would later become known as WDRC-FM. Now, Germany's conflict of France began on this date in 1940 as the German army crossed the Meuse River. Now, I have to, before I play this cut, some of you aren't going to hear this. That's because YouTube is conspiring with Sony Music to suppress some of this on Facebook. So, if it's not there, you'll know why. Winston Churchill made a very important speech to the House of Commons, which technically should be public domain, but Sony Music thinks it's not. Let's listen to this famous speech by Winston Churchill.
I have never promised anything but blood, tears, toil, and sweat.
Winston Churchill, blood, toil, tears, and sweat. He made that speech to the House of Commons on this date in 1940. During a visit to Caracas, Venezuela in 1958, Vice President Nixon, his car was attacked by anti-American demonstrators. The trademark for Velcro registered on this date in 1958. In 1960, hundreds of University of California, Berkeley students congregated for the first day of protests against a visit by the House Un-American Activities Committee. 31 students arrested, and the free speech movement was born. And interestingly enough, I think people should be entitled to free speech. I don't think you should be advocating for the violent overthrow of the government. I think that everybody needs to have an opportunity to have their say. That's just me. But then I'm funny that way. In 1981, Mehmet Ali Agca attempted to assassinate Pope John Paul II in St. Peter's Square in Rome. Pope rushed to a university clinic to undergo emergency surgery, and he did survive. Cardinal Terence Cook spoke at a mass in New York's St. Patrick's Cathedral.
As we see in it, once again, the bitter harvest of violence in our world, our first reaction must be one of gratitude to God that the life of this great and gentle shepherd has been spared, and that he will continue to guide the church in health and strength for the years that God will give him.
4 days after being shot, the Pope offered forgiveness to his would-be assassin from his hospital bed. The pontiff spent 3 weeks in the hospital before being released fully recovered from his wounds. In 1985, Philadelphia police stormed MOVE headquarters to end the standoff, killing 11 MOVE members and destroying the homes of 250 city residents.
We intend to evict from the house, we intend to evacuate from the house, and we intend to seize control of the house.
Mayor W. Wilson Goode, who earlier in the day, that was what he said earlier in the day, he later said the attempt to evict was met by gunfire and said, quoting, what we have out there is war. American physician Kermit Gosnell found guilty in Pennsylvania of murdering 3 infants born alive during attempted abortions, involuntary manslaughter of a woman during an abortion procedure, and other charges. That took place in 2013. Passing away on this date in history, actor Gary Cooper, Hoss Cartwright, Dan Blocker, also Bob Wills, Country Swing. My gosh, great music. Trumpeter Chet Baker, lead singer for Heatwave, Johnny Wilder Jr., actor Frank Aletter, great bass player Donald Duck Dunn, psychologist, author, actress, and game show participant Dr. Joyce Brothers, actress Margot Kidder, and Doris Day. This is the birth date of St. Francis of Assisi, also musician Gil Evans, Joe Louis, the great boxer, actress B. Arthur, Maude, Richie Valens, and Mary Wells, who used to sing about My Guy. Taxi drivers, Harvey Keitel is 83 today. From the movie Bang Bang You're Dead, Austrian actress Senta Berger is 81. Mr. Gorpley on Perfect Strangers, also from Angel, Lost, ER, Sam Anderson, 77. Little Stevie Wonder is now 72 years old. Oh, I'm getting old. Hootie and the Blowfishes, Darius Rucker, 56. From Lost, Neil Hopkins is 45. From HBO's Girls, Lena Dunham is 36. From Twilight and Batman in The Batman, Robert Pattinson, 36 years old. From Vampire Diaries, Candace King is 35, as is Hunter Parrish, who played Jesus in Godspell on Broadway, and also was in Showtime's Weeds, 35 years old. And country singer Morgan Wallen is 29. Now, those are just a few of the people who celebrate the 13th day of May as their birthday. And if this is your birthday...
Hi, we're the 4 freshmen, and we just want to say, Happy birthday to you!
And from 68 years ago, May 13th, 1954... Jimmy Stewart as the 6-shooter on this Friday Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox here on your favorite radio station.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE. 833-34-BIBLE.
Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, we go back 68 years, May 13th, 1954. Western Adventure. Hal Gibney, tell us about it.
James Stewart as the 6-shooter. The man in the saddle is angular and long-legged. His skin is sun-dyed brown. The gun in his holster is gray steel and rainbow mother of pearl. Its handle, unmarked. People call them both the 6-shooter. The NBC Radio Network presents James Stewart as the 6-shooter. A transcribed series of radio dramas based on the life of Britt Ponsett, the Texas plainsman who wandered through the Western territories, leaving behind a trail of still-remembered legends.
Halfway Creek sure wasn't much of a town. Oh, that's a general store and cafe, rooming house, and a blacksmith shop. That's about all there was to it. And I'd never figured out where the place got its name, either. It didn't seem to be halfway to anything. As a matter of fact, it was right at the end of the trail from Santa Fe. The only thing further west was a couple of small farms and Gid Bascom's 7 Ranch. That's where I was heading, to 7, to see if I could sign on with Gid for the spring roundup. Oh. Wow, it didn't look like I was going to have to ride out all the way. Oh, boy. Oh. Yeah. Well, there was Gid himself pounding down the main street, 5 or 6 fellows behind him. Well, if he had that many men working for him already, he probably wouldn't have much use for me.
Hey, Britt Ponset.
Howdy, Gid.
Where in the name of Moses you come from, Britt?
Oh, no place special. I was laying some railroad track out of Denver for a spell, but then I thought it was about time for me to hit the saddle again.
Well, if you're looking for a job, we can always use an extra hand, can't we, boys?
Well, it's mighty nice of you, Gid. To tell you the truth, I was sort of hoping that you had room for another.
Well, go on, Britt.
Oh. I guess you've got enough help here without me.
Well, my outfit's been growing since you were through here last. But we're stretched clear over to Apache Hill.
You don't say.
It takes a lot of riders to cover that much ground.
Yeah, I guess it does.
Oh, come on then, let's go. We're on our way back to the 7 right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe next roundup, Gid.
What's the matter with you, Britt? You said you were looking for work.
I reckon I'm what changed Ponset's mind, Gid. I reckon he's a little too fancy to ride alongside me.
Huh?
How about it, 6-shooter?
You boys know each other?
We met up.
Yeah.
Well, take it easy, Gid. I'll be seeing you.
Now, hold up a minute, Britt. You go ahead, boys. I'll catch up with you. I want to talk with Ponset.
You're wasting your breath.
I'm still boss of the 7, Clint. I don't need no advice from you.
Sure, Gid, sure.
How about a cup of coffee, Britt?
Oh, thanks. I guess I could use one.
Yeah. Christian ain't the best cook in the world. He can usually get his coffee down without it gagging you.
Christy still run the cafe, huh?
Sure. Town ain't changed much, Britt. On the surface, that is.
Oh?
Oh, well, come on in, Mr. Bascom. Come on in.
Hello, Christy. You remember Britt Ponset?
Britt, well, for goodness sakes, when did you get back to town?
Oh, just a little while ago, Christy. You're sure looking well.
Fit as a fiddle, Mr. Ponset. Fit as a fiddle. Now, you both sit down at that table over there, and I'll bring you some of my special for today. Beef stew. I made it fresh this morning.
No, thanks, Christy. We just come in for some coffee.
Why, it's after 4 o'clock. It's practically time for supper.
No, coffee will do the trick for now.
Well, what about you, Mr. Ponset? A little taste of my stew?
No. I think I'll just stick to coffee, too.
Oh, okay. Well, the pot's on the stove out in back. I'll get it.
No hurry. Well, Britt?
Is
Clint right? Is it on account of him you don't want to work for me?
I never said that, Gid.
You sure acted it.
Well, to tell you the truth, I was sort of surprised that you'd hire a man like Clint Sutton.
Britt, I just didn't have no choice.
Oh?
Like I told you, the 7's been growing. When a ranch gets big, well, I guess a man's bound to make enemies. He needs somebody who's handy with a gun around.
Mm-hmm. You never had any enemies before, Gid.
Yeah, well, times are different now, Britt.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you remember those sod busters down by the creek, Perry Waddell and Fred Garver?
Sure.
Well, there's been some new ones move in the last year or so.
Well, that isn't your land along the creek, is it?
No. Never claimed it was. I always figured there was plenty of space around here. Room enough for me and them nesters, too.
Well,
I ain't been like some of the other ranches. You know that, Britt. I ain't never tried to run the sod busters off or burn them out. Live and let live. That's what I always said. I try to practice my preaching, too.
Here's your coffee, Jack. Right off the stove. There we are. You sure you won't have nothing else?
Oh, thanks, Christy. Here you go.
No, hold on.
Keep your hands away from your pockets, Britt. I guess I can afford a couple of cups of coffee.
Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Bascom. I say, I've got some bread in the oven, so if you want anything more, you just holler.
Boy. Better saucer it for a spell. Let it cool off some, huh?
Wow. It's not the heat, it's the taste. Gee whiz, that stuff's... Well, it's as bad as the coffee I make myself. Worse.
Yeah, I guess it's a good thing we didn't order none of Christie's stew.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway, Britt, about Clint Sutton. Now, there was a good reason for hiring him. They've been stealing my cattle.
What?
Yeah, them nesters.
No.
Now, there ain't any doubt about it. My tallies are short. After the roundup, I'll know for certain how many they got away with.
Oh, now, Gid, it doesn't stand to reason that men like Waddell and Garber would rustle your animals. They're in a rough spot as it is when they're living right next to the edge of your ranch. Well, they must know that you could shove them off of there if you took a mind to it.
I guess they know that all right. Anyway, one of them tried to shoot me.
Were you sure of that?
No, I didn't see who it was, not for certain. But there ain't been any strangers around Halfway Creek lately, so...
Sutton's a stranger.
I hired him after the shooting. I had to have somebody, Britt. My own boys ain't very fast with a gun. They ain't had much experience lately.
Now, Gid, you're just asking for trouble bringing Clint Sutton in here.
Britt, the trouble's already started, and I didn't start it. They did. Of course, if I had known you were coming into town, I wouldn't have taken Clint on.
Well, if what you wanted was a gun, I'm not the man for you. I reckon Clint is.
Well, that's the way you feel, Britt.
That's the way I feel.
Maybe you'll change your mind after things quiet down. Or maybe there won't be a serious mix-up now that them sod busters know that I mean business.
I wouldn't count on that, Gid. Well, thanks for the coffee. Well, it was getting on toward evening now, and I was beginning to feel some hunger pains down the pit of my stomach. Oh, I sure didn't like the idea of sampling Christie Ott's stew, though. I figured I'd be better off to buy some cold grub at the general store, so I headed across the street. Just as I started to go in the front door, I saw somebody staring at me from behind a wagon over to the blacksmith shop. The sun was directly behind him, so I couldn't tell who it was exactly. Not until it came around into the shade.
Britt? That you, Britt?
Huh? Yeah.
Well, don't you recognize me? Perry Waddell?
Oh, sure, Perry. The sun was in my eyes. I couldn't see.
You busy, Britt?
No, not especially.
Well, I'd like to talk to you if you got a minute spare. Busted one of my wagon wheels this morning. I'm waiting for Sam Todd to see if he can put it together.
Mm-hmm. Well, how have things been going with you, Perry?
Not so good, Britt. Not so good.
Yeah, I was just talking to Gid Bascom. What's behind the trouble, anyway?
Same old story, I reckon. Big ranch, small farms, there just ain't room for them both.
There's always plenty of room before. Perry, Gid tells me that some of his cattle are missing.
Oh, that's just his excuse to get rid of us.
Uh-huh.
And I ain't no thief, Brett.
Oh, of course not, Perry. But I understand that they've been some new families moving in, is that right?
Any farmer who'd steal from Gid's herd, he'd be plumb loco. He'd just be asking for Gid to burn him out.
Yeah, that's true enough.
I suppose Gid told you somebody took a shot at him, too, and said it was one of us.
He mentioned something about it, yeah.
He just needed a reason for bringing that Clint Sutton in here. Clint's a killer, pure and simple. Think bad enough that Gid wants our land. He's got to hire a gunfighter to take it away from us.
Well, Gid never objected to your farms before, Perry.
There was always plenty of other land waiting for him. Now he's pushed his ranch clear to Apache Hill. He can't go no farther in that direction, so he's got to spread east. And we're in his way.
It just somehow doesn't sound like Gid. He sure seems sincere when I talk to him. Now, I'm almost certain he believes somebody's been rustling his cattle.
Britt, I swear to you that I never so much as laid a hand on any of his stock.
Well, that's none of my concern, Perry. I'm leaving town anyway.
Oh, you can't leave, Britt. You got to stay here.
I what?
You're the only man who can stand up to Bascom. And Sutton.
Oh, now, hold on, Perry.
Oh, we couldn't pay you much, but we'd all chip in and give you what we can.
I told Gid I'm not a hired gun. I'm going to tell you the same thing.
Britt, my farm's all I've got in this world. I spent 21 years trying to build it up into something that'd mean a decent living for my wife and kids. Nobody's going to take it away from me now.
Well, I understand that. Hey, look at that. Looks like somebody's in a rush, huh?
It's Ruth Lovett.
Roof?
Oh, he's homesteading the place right next to mine. Roof? Roof, what's your hurry?
I gotta see you, Perry.
Sure?
Yeah, but it's real important.
Well, I was just going into the store anyway, so I'll see you later.
No need for you to rush off, Britt. Roof, this here's Britt Ponsett. You can speak your mind in front of him.
Six-shooter?
That's right.
Real pleased to meet you, Mr. Ponsett.
Howdy.
Now, what's all the fuss about, Roof?
They're gonna burn us out tonight, Perry.
You sure?
Yeah, one of Kid's own men told me.
Well, I was just talking to Kid just a little while ago, Roof. He never had any intention then.
Well, maybe he's changed his mind since then, Mr. Ponsett, or maybe he didn't feel like advertising what he's up to. Now, Perry, we got to get together, all us farmers.
Oh, sure, Roof, sure. We'll hold them off.
Hold them off? Why, we wouldn't have a chance against a man like Clint Sutton.
Well, we got to do something. We got to fight back.
Yeah, we'll fight back, all right, but on their own ground.
What do you mean?
Well, they'll be riding toward our farms tonight, Gid and all his boys. There won't be a soul over at the 777.
Yeah?
We'll show Gid Bascom he ain't going to have everything his way. We'll burn him out while he's burning us.
Oh, Roof.
Now, I sure don't see what you'll accomplish by that, Roof.
Why, Gid'll think twice before he tries to shove somebody else around. That's what we'll accomplish.
Maybe so, but it won't save your farm.
From 68 years ago, May 13th, 1954, Jimmy Stewart as the six-shooter. Thank you for tuning in on this Friday to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. The news from 68 years ago today comes up next.
No offense, but are you a little fat when you look in the mirror? How would you like to learn the secrets to lose 3 to 5 pounds a week easily without joining the gym or going through any crazy diets? It's called Body Sculpt by Med Diet. For the last 2 decades, we've been helping people just like you that have pounds they want to shed. We've helped millions of people lose thousands and thousands of pounds over the years. And now it's your turn. Learn the secrets of how to lose weight with one simple phone call. You'll see an amazing difference in a matter of days. Don't believe us? We'll offer you a money-back guarantee. If you're ready to start losing weight right now, call right now to learn more about your risk-free order to Body Sculpt.
Call for your risk-free offer. 800-738-5332. 800-738-5332. 800-738-5332. That's 800-738-5332.
Are you in bad pain? You know what I mean. Your knees hurt. Your shoulder hurts. Your elbow and back are constantly killing you. And I'm sure you've tried every pain pill or cream available at the drugstore. Am I right? Well, here's something you haven't tried. Pain Magic. Pain Magic is not available at any drugstore. The only place you can get it is by calling the special toll-free number I'm about to give you.
And to make things even better, call right now and find out about our buy one, get one free offer. We're so confident it'll work for you that we offer a free bottle with your purchase. No prescription required.
Call now to learn how you can get Pain Magic and get rid of your pain. Remember, your results may vary.
800-492-8164. 800-492-8164. 800-492-8164. That's 800-492-8164.
Thanks for tuning into Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We're listening to an episode of The Six-Shooter starring Jimmy Stewart as it was originally broadcast Thursday, May 13th, 1954. In the newspapers of that Thursday 68 years ago, these were some of the headlines. John G. Adams testified yesterday the Army took the fateful first step toward its challenge to Senator McCarthy, the Republican from Wisconsin, at the suggestion of President Eisenhower's chief assistant. Adams, the counsel to the Army, said Sherman Adams of the White House staff advised him last January 21st to prepare a written record of the Army's trouble with McCarthy's office over draftee G. David Schein. As the Army lawyer described it, This record, proposed at a meeting of top-level administration officials in the office of Attorney General Brownell, grew into a published report, which triggered the flaming controversy now being aired before TV cameras. Meanwhile, in emphatic terms bearing directly on the McCarthy Army hearings, President Eisenhower said yesterday it is reprehensible for an individual officer or civilian to give away secret information involving national security. Eisenhower classed such action as insubordination and said not for 1 second would he think of doing it. The president didn't mention Senator McCarthy by name. He sought to discuss proprieties in general terms. In the president's press conference, President Eisenhower expressed firm belief in a bipartisan foreign policy yesterday, and the Democratic leader of the Senate said his party was willing to go more than halfway to achieve it. Senator Lyndon Johnson, the Democrat of Texas, told the Senate, "As Americans interested in the preservation of our country, I think we should be able to work together in any area of foreign policy where we are in agreement." At the same time, Chairman Leonard W. Hall of the Republican National Committee accused a few disgruntled Democrats, men of little faith, of attempting to talk us into an international panic. Senator Clyde R. Hoey, the Democrat of North Carolina, died at his desk in his office at the age of 76. Dr. George W. Calver, a physician to Congress, said Hoey apparently suffered a stroke while seated in a chair. The state of Vietnam, torn by war for nearly 8 years, demanded peace yesterday, but without a Korea-like partition of the country. The Vietnamese proposals had the sympathy, if not the 100% approval, of the non-communist states represented at a 9-nation Indonesian conference, but they appeared to fall on deaf ears in the communist bloc. Bing Crosby better look to his laurels. His replacement is right behind him. Columbia Broadcasting System announced that the crooner's son, Gary, 21, will take over the Bing Crosby Show on radio for the summer, starting June 6th. Those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Thursday, May 13th, 1954. On your radio, Jimmy Stewart as the six-shooter, which continues now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
Well, what else can we do?
Well, you might try talking to Gid, see if you can find out what's eating.
Talk's a waste of time.
Oh, I don't know, Ruth. Maybe he'll listen to reason.
Has he ever listened to us before?
Well...
Besides, what about Clint Sutton? Who's going to reason with that gun of his?
Yeah, I kind of forgot about Clint. Britt?
Now, Perry...
Britt, talking to Gid is your idea.
Yeah, I know it is. I know, but Oh, doggone it, Perry. All right, I'll see if I can head him off. Now, you and Ruth go back to your farm. Stay put, huh?
Okay, Mr. Ponset.
You don't know how much this means to us, Britt.
Yeah, I see. Got it. Maybe someday I'll learn to keep my doggone ideas to myself.
And the conclusion of the six-shooter from 68 years ago, May 13th, 1954, comes up next on this Friday Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.
Are you suffering with arthritis or osteoporosis? Do you have diabetes? Did you know that these are just 2 of the hundreds of diseases that have seen improvement with Dr. Wallach's incredible longevity products? You can't get them at a health food store. The only way to get them is to call us at 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065. Do you have heart disease, fibromyalgia, or high blood pressure? Do you have a terrible time losing weight? Dr. Wallach can help. He was a veterinarian and cured diseases in animals. He felt that he could do the same for humans, so he became a physician. Over 50 years of research and helping people like you goes into every bottle of Dr. Wallach's amazing discoveries. Do you want to feel better? Learn how to treat the cause of your problem rather than covering up the symptoms with drugs. Call 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065.
On Saturday's Classic Radio Theater, we're going to go back 87 years to May 14th, 1935. An episode of Calling All Cars, the West Coast Police procedural. Murder in the Vineyard. A rancher has been found murdered near Fresno. That'll be coming up on Saturday's Classic Radio Theater. By the way, one item that I didn't get to in the news of this date back in 1954, and I think it deserves a mention. Mr. and Mrs. Julia Shabas of Birmingham, New York, received the bill for babysitting services rendered in the night of January 15, 1953, more than $6,250. What made the bill so high was that Shabas's 5-year-old son, Barry, shot the babysitter accidentally with his father's .30-30 rifle. The sitter, Mrs. Lulu Mae Williams, spent 10 weeks in hospital. Okay, now the conclusion of Jimmy Stewart as the six-shooter, May 13th, 1954, 68 years ago today.
Now, Act 2 of The Six Shooter, starring James Stewart as Britt Ponsett.
Ged Bascom's ranch house is about a 3-hour ride from town, so around about 8 o'clock I figure I was halfway there. The moon was just beginning to silver up the top of Apache Hill. I hadn't been too sure of the trail, but now that things were lightening up some, I gave Scarlett a nudge. Come on, let's go. It was real sandy country. A clump of purple sage every now and then, once in a while a pine tree or two. And we must have covered about 4 miles, and then we came to a little creek. From there on, the trail started to wind into a kind of a jagged ravine with a couple of tall yellow rocks at the mouth, sort of sticking up straight in the air like a couple of fingers. We were just getting past those rocks when I heard what sounded like about a half a dozen horses coming toward me. Whoa, boy, whoa. Whoa, Scar. I pulled up and waited. Oh. Howdy, Ged.
What are you doing out here, Britt?
Oh, I just thought I might come out and take a look at the 777.
Some other time.
You, in a hurry to go somewhere?
That's right, we're in a hurry.
Oh, hello, Clint.
Come on, Gid, we ain't got all night.
Right.
You mind telling me where you're heading, Gid?
Now, look, I offered you a job this afternoon. You turned me down. I don't see where anything I do from here on in is your concern.
No, it sure isn't. But I was just noticing, and it looks to me like you've got the whole crew with you.
What if I have?
Well, that must be something kind of important to take you all the way out here, away from the ranch this time of night.
We're going to burn out a bunch of Stephen rustlers. Is that important enough for you, Ponsett? Thanks. Well, you might as well know it. You can't do nothing to stop us.
What happened, Ged? You weren't planning anything like this when I talked to you a little while ago.
Clint found 5 of my steers over in a canyon behind one of them farms.
Well, maybe your steers got lost. Maybe they just strayed over that way.
And hobbled themselves?
Well, even so, it seems to me like this is a matter for the law.
There ain't no sheriff in Halfway Creek. You know that, Britt.
Well, there's a sheriff at Bixby Falls. Somebody go over and get him.
You get him if you want him, Ponsett. We got other things to do.
No.
Come on, Gid.
No, I wouldn't let Clint hurry me if I was you, Gid.
What difference does it make?
It might make a lot of difference. Seeing as how those farmers were talking about paying you back if you go after them.
I'd sure like to know what they could do.
Well, they sort of had an idea that they could burn down the 777.
What? Well, they sure must want to get themselves killed.
Uh-huh. It doesn't look to me like there'd be anybody there to kill him, Sutton.
Look, he's lying. He's just trying to stall us.
Do you think I'm lying, Gid?
Turn around, boys. We're going back to the ranch.
Well, you're crazy, Gid. Them nesters wouldn't be
I said turn around. Now, let's go.
Well, I watched them for a minute or two, moving along through the ravine, heading back to the 777. I could hear Clint arguing with Gid, and Gid didn't seem to be paying much attention to him. Then I swung Scar around toward Halfway Creek. Must have been about 30 minutes later when we came down to a narrow stretch of trail that twisted down the side of the cliff. Easy, boy. Easy. The moon was sliding under a thick milk-white cloud, and the rocks and the trees started fading into night shadows. For a minute or so, everything got real still. Even the crickets. Somebody else was taking the same trail. Sounded like he was following me. I got a kind of a prickly feeling across the back of my neck. I started wondering maybe Clint Sutton. I twisted around to see if I could get a look. I had to squint my eyes. Finally, I made out the shape of a horse about 40 feet back. He was just standing there nibbling on a couple of tufts of grass. Wasn't anybody in the saddle. And right then, the cloud over the moon started skidding away, and the trees began coming back to size. I was just about to give Scar a touch of the spur when I saw him, crouching low behind a clump of pines. I saw something else, too, a little glint of metal. Whoever it was had a gun. I jerked out of the saddle and hit the ground. Looked around for cover. His aim was close. It was too darn close. Well, it couldn't be Sutton. I knew Clint's style of gunplay. He might miss one shot, and he wouldn't miss twice. And then I spotted a little gully a few feet to my left, and I crawled toward it, keeping as low as I could. I was almost there before he had a chance to fire again. When he did, I started rolling, and I tumbled down into the draw. I took out my gun. I was hoping he'd think he'd hit me, that his bullet had sent me over the side. And I couldn't hear him move. I pressed flat, and I pulled up behind a couple of big tumbleweeds. I sort of cut down my chance of him spotting me. He was coming now. He was going to be at the edge of the gully in a couple more steps. I shoved my gun up and sort of gauged where I thought he'd show. Then a leg came into sight. Not more than 6 feet away. Then his body swung up into view. And just before he fired, he went down on his knees fast. I swung out of the way, and his bullet cut through one of the tumbleweeds. I gave it a shove, and the wind sort of caught it. He fired again. But he wasn't firing at me now. He was firing at the weed. And he had to rise up into sight to get aim. And my bullet slapped him on the shoulder, and for a minute he sort of hung in midair and teetering on the edge of the draw. And then he pitched forward and toppled down beside me. And I turned him over. And got a look at his face. What? Well, what the thunder are you trying to do, Roof? You should have been able to recognize me. It wasn't as dark as all that.
I recognized you, Ponset.
What?
You shouldn't have meddled in this. Gid would have burned us out if it hadn't been for you stopping him.
Well, you wanted him to burn you out?
It's going to happen anyway, ain't it? Sooner or later.
Well, not if Gid isn't forced into it.
Big ranchers don't need no forcing.
What are you talking about? I don't understand you, Roof. It was your farm he was going to burn. You're talking like that you hoped it would happen.
I think I care about that farm. I had me a farm once down in Texas. Real good soil, brown, soft, rich, plenty of water, too. A man could grow anything on that land.
Oh, what happened to it?
Well, there was a ranch. Bigger than Gid's outfit, even. But it wasn't big enough. Not big enough to suit the fellow owned it. He kept stretching out, crawling down from the hills, moving his fences closer and closer till one day they was right up against my property. He offered to buy me out. He offered me good money, but it was my farm. I didn't want to sell no matter what he was willing to pay me.
Here, come on now. Pull out your shirt, too. Try and see if I can get that bleeding to stop.
Yeah.
You think you'll be able to ride?
I don't know. Give me a couple of minutes.
Oh, sure. Well, go on now. You were telling me about your farm down in Texas.
Ain't much more to tell. I wouldn't sell it. Nancy, she was my wife. She told me I was wrong. I'd have to give in, but I didn't listen to her. I should have listened. It burned us out.
I see.
I wasn't there when it happened. I was in town. Nancy, she tried to stop him. He killed her.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lovett.
I killed her and left her there in the house while they burned it. Couldn't even give her a decent burial. There was...
No. Now, take it easy, Ruth.
Don't matter what becomes of me, Ponset, not anymore. After Nancy... Well, afterwards I come up here to New Mexico. Figured maybe I could start over, maybe things would be different, but there wasn't no different. There's always a ranch and a fella like Gid Bascom to shove you around. I watched him spreading out clear to Apache Hills, and then when he couldn't go no further in that direction, I knowed he'd be coming my way. Well, I wasn't just going to sit around and wait for him like I'd done before.
So you stole Gid's cattle. Is that what you're saying?
Didn't have nothing to lose. I was going to be burned out anyways. I even took a shot at him, but I ain't much good with a gun. I guess I kind of showed that tonight.
Well, it wasn't Gid who burned you out down in Texas, Ruth.
Luke was a rancher, just like Gid. They're all the same, Ponset, with their grabbing, burning, and killing. I figured if I stirred up enough trouble to force Gid out in the open, maybe then some of the other farmers would come along with me and we'd burn him up. He'd get a taste of his own medicine. I'd be paying Gid back for what he'd done to Nancy.
But, Ruth, I can
still see how it was that night. Smoke and ashes everywhere. First, I couldn't believe it that they killed her. I started to holler until my throat was so sore the sound just wouldn't come out no more. But she didn't answer me. I thought maybe she'd run off somewhere. They'd scared her and she'd run away. And I saw her over behind a pile of smoking timbers. Her clothes was all burned out. That's what he'd done. That's what Gid had done.
That wasn't Gid Bascom. Now, get a hold of yourself.
I've got to make it up for Nancy. I got to burn the 777.
And you're coming to town with me.
Town?
Come on now. Can you stand up?
I guess so. Who are you?
No, you come along. Now, here, let me give you a hand.
What about Luke Harper?
Luke Harper?
You ain't been listening to me. I told you I got to get even with Harper for killing my wife. That's what I was going to do tonight, burn down his ranch. Now, I told you.
I know, yeah. Now, you told me. But you just better forget about that for now.
Well, I couldn't forget. No, not ever.
Come on, Ruth. Come on, you and me are going to town.
Huh?
Here, I'll help you on your horse here. Come on.
Thanks, mister. Thanks a lot. You've been real kind to... It's funny. There's something wrong with my shoulder. Somebody shot me. Did Luke Harper do that, mister?
Maybe he did, Ruth. In a way. Maybe he did. I took Ruth as far as Perry Waddell's house before I went in to get the doc. It looked like Ruth was going to be all right. At least it looked like he'd get over that wound in the shoulder. But whether he'd really ever get well again, I guess even the doctor couldn't tell that. The next morning, Gid Bascom rode into town and found out what had happened. He said he was willing to forget about the stolen cattle and the other trouble Ruth had caused him. And he said he'd get rid of Clint Sutton, too. He didn't come right out and admit it, but I've got a hunch he was kind of sorry that he'd hired Sutton in the first place. It just goes to show you there's differences in ranchers like anything else.
The Six Shooter is a transcribed NBC Radio Network production in association with Review Productions. It is written by Frank Burtz and is based on a character created by him. Mr. Stewart may currently be seen in the Universal International picture The Glenn Miller Story. Others in the cast were Lamont Johnson, Gerald Moore, Bob Griffin, Parley Bear, and Howard McNear. Special music for this program was by Basil Adlin, and the entire production is under the direction of Jack Johnstone. All characters and incidents were fictitious, and any resemblance to actual characters or incidents is purely coincidental. Oh, by the way, You'll be interested in knowing that the six-shooter has been chosen for broadcast to our men overseas through the facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. This is Hal Gibney speaking.
From 68 years ago, May 15th, 1954, The Six-Shooter on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Visit my webpage, classicradio.stream. There you can stream our shows on demand, learn more about classic radio collecting, and contact me there, classicradio.stream. Also, you can find our shows anywhere podcasts are served, including iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon, Facebook. Search for Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox or on Facebook at Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thanks for tuning in. Tell all your friends great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.